So good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today on this new topic, gendered innovation. So I'd like to quickly just explain what are the differences. So until now, I think the concept of gender, or sort of promoting women's empowerment, eliminating gender differences, these things have traditionally been talked about from the point of view of social ethics and inequality. However, this new concept that I met recently will be looking at gendered innovation, which focuses on the positive influence that gender differences can have in research outcome, product development, and in services. And it actually leads to the development of the whole community that is equitable and beneficial for everybody. So this approach creates new markets and demand, contributing to the revenues and profits of companies and organizations. So in striving for a safer, richer society and economic development, we must ask what businesses, government, and entrepreneurs, what they can do for the perspective of gendered innovation. And today, I am very happy to invite Dr. Londa Schibinger from Stanford University. She is a proponent of gendered innovations. Today, just because this GI, it's a very new concept, and so in order to understand what is GI and in which area has GI truly made an impact, I've actually asked her to do just a few slides to understand the concept at the beginning so that we can have a very interactive discussion afterwards. Dr. Londa, please start. Thank you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I'm so glad Gendered Innovations is coming to Japan. It was founded in 2009 and is a global concept. So it's active in Europe, in the Americas, of course, in Australia. And I'm really delighted that in Japan, you've opened an Institute for Gendered Innovations in 2022. So what is Gendered Innovations? It's about using the power of gender analysis for discovery and innovation. That's what we want. It can grow your economy. It can bring you new and useful products, services, research. Hopefully, we can do something about global warming. So to bring this alive, I'm going to give you 3 quick examples, and I hope that everybody here today can take one example from this meeting and share it with a friend or a colleague. So my first example is heart disease. Heart attack in women is the #1 killer of women and men, of course. And even though it's the #1 killer of women, we've always thought of it as a male disease. And as a result, women are often mis- and underdiagnosed. And until recently, doctors and even women ourselves did not understand that the symptoms of heart attack are different in men and women. And this has been the huge innovation, understanding this. And this innovation has had economic and social benefits. A new study from the United States shows that improving women's heart health could add 1.6 million quality life years to women's lives and increase the economy in the US, this was a US study, by $28 billion annually by 2040. So that's one example, understanding heart attack in women. The second example is about automobile safety. Now, I've driven Toyotas most of my adult life. You are great automobile makers. But one problem is that automobiles, so women are 47% more likely to be injured in a car accident because for automobile safety, we use this mid-sized male body. This has been since the 1960s. And sure, you see a female here, but she's just a small male. This tiny female does not model women's muscle strength, women's ligaments, or spinal alignment. So here is the gendered innovation. This is Astrid Linder. She's a Swedish engineer, and she has created a mid-size female dummy. And we've been friends for years. Hers is a huge achievement. And now I need you to help with a policy innovation. So no government uses this mid-size female dummy in their automobile safety testing. So I need you. Japan could be the leader. You could be the first country to do this. And then our third example has to do with surgical instruments. Why are there so few women surgeons? Surgery is one of the worst fields for women. And there are many reasons. One of them is that the size of surgical instruments and the strength required to use them doesn't fit women's hands. So the important gendered innovation here, and I'm only mentioning one, is a new surgical instrument. It's for colon surgery, but instead of being a manual stapler, it's a powered stapler, and anybody can use it. An older surgeon, a surgeon with small hands, or a female surgeon. So this allows more people to be surgeons, and it leads to better outcomes for patients. It's a win-win. So I invite you to join with us for Gendered Innovations. It adds value to research, it adds value to society, and it adds value to businesses by developing new ideas, patents, and technologies. Thank you very much.
Dr. Londa, thank you so much for putting out the concept. So I think now it's quite clear as to what gendered innovation is. So now in Japan, various initiatives focusing on gender differences are also underway. And so to consider this issue from the perspective of the government, private companies, and women entrepreneurs, I'd like to introduce 3 Japanese panelists. And so first of all, I'd like to start with Hiroshima Prefecture Governor Hidehiko Yuzaki-san. Maybe you could please start on the initiatives at the community level. For example, I think we mentioned before that in South Korea, for example, the walkways have been modified to reduce bumps to less than 2 millimeters to prevent women's heel from getting stuck. I'm sure we all know how that feels. But then what actually happened was that because we did that, it's eliminated the tripping of the elderly people and made it harder for children to fall. So are there similar initiatives maybe in Hiroshima? Urban development, have you seen any cases in Hiroshima that you've seen that has positively sort of impacted residents as a whole? Please, Izaki-san.
Well, thank you very much, Todoroki-san, and I'm very much honored to be on this panel. We've been working very hard to promote women's participation in the workplace, and of course, diversity and equity and inclusion is a huge issue in Japan, including women. And we don't necessarily focus on the gendered innovation. I think that's kind of a new concept and new ideas that Japan has not taken in so much yet. But along when we promote those women's inclusion or women's participation, there are things that come up in a gender innovation way. For example, there's been a huge bias that women are not really suitable in like heavy industry line working, right? So like a steel making, it's very hot and things are heavy. But we promoted to have women in those lines, and some companies actually did that. And what happened was, when the workforce was only men, what they relied on was men's muscle, right? So they were really reliant on the men's power. But when women came in, and they're not necessarily as muscular as men, and they couldn't carry heavy things. And before women came in, they were carrying huge bucket of something I think dangerous to bring up to upstairs and downstairs, and that was very dangerous. And when the women came in, they they realized that women cannot carry that, and installed kind of a easy elevator system so that you don't have to use your muscle, and that actually reduced the risks for everybody. And I think this kind of is very similar to the high heel example in Korea, but and this is not only about women, but like challenged or handicapped people or elderly, or like children, right? When we make certain consideration for those who have a difference from what is considered as the majority, and that majority tended to be men, right? Male. And that is a huge gender bias, I think. Then when we improve those things, environment and things get much better for everyone.
Thank you very much, Yuzaki-san. I think it's it's very true that if we include the diversity, basically all the different sort of minorities, differences in opinion, differences in sex or gender or anything else, that it can actually create a better world for everybody. I think that's a great takeaway from here. Thank you. So now I'd like to turn to the Horie-san, who has supported women entrepreneurs worldwide, representing Women's Startup Lab. And so while G1 is not solely focused on women, there are market gaps and needs that I think can be only be understood by women, for example. So if you have any specific examples or things that you can share, that'd be great.
Sure. We've been operating about 10 years and have listened many women's idea. We specified supporting a women entrepreneur. Some simple things like AI that you have heard. This is 10 years ago. One of an entrepreneur from Australia came up and said all those AI doesn't really understand the human aspect of it. She not only developed, but she was so good understanding a human aspect that even IBM Watson have acquired her. And getting into specific why her idea, the other entrepreneur's idea was good. We work in a different company, offers office. Here it is, a women entrepreneur said, I am going to turn into our kitchen table into office space. And you're here thinking, how could that be possibly attractive? And so most of the male investors didn't understand because you can imagine. But women realized that, hey, you can turn it in the table. Kitchen is the place to hang out because they have to, while they're working, they have to pick up kids, load up the laundry, prepare for the dinner. They don't have a time to take a train to go all the way to the city to go to some cool working place. So she gathered all those women entrepreneurs, created a platform, allowed people to say, hey, today I'm going to open up the kitchen and talk about this particular business. And if your kids are 3 to 5, you can bring them. So their children start getting being great friends, and they were able to connect and learn together. And as a community, they start working better. Now, this happens actually for a long time by women, right? When you think about it, hundreds of years, women always found a place together and support. So she digitized. And so once she came out, the local entrepreneur came together and she started getting so much traction that made venture folks really got really surprised, and she came to Silicon Valley. And lastly, you know that Match.com, some dating site, one of the largest dating site. Once upon a time, they started. They didn't have a good user. They needed women to obviously sign up. Well, they were asking women their size. And women did not like being asked and posting their size. So one of our advisor, who was co-founder of Match.com, came in to the company and changed it to the shape. Fuller shape, skinnier shape. And so that completely turned around the Match.com and start having women. So those are some of the example I wanted to share. So the opportunities everywhere, and we have to be kind of aware our biases to see things. We tended to see things what we understand. But the more and more, if you can just kind of listen deeply what they are saying, we find more opportunity and venture opportunity, per se, in the world, working with the women and the people has different background. Yes?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I think it's clear that a lot of innovations can start from there. And then so maybe when we have time afterwards, we can talk about how we can make that from 0 to 10 to 100. Those maybe like there's some challenges for the growth of that sort of entrepreneur business. Okay, so now, Mr. Yasubuchi, thank you so much. I understand that at AXA, that there's an active effort to promote the participation of female employees, and they make up actually half of your workforce. And to advance them into management positions, you're creating an environment where everybody can fully utilize their abilities regardless of gender. And however, I believe that there's still barriers to achieving GI when we were discussing in a pre-meeting. And so if you could explain to us, what do you think are really the barriers to GI, especially within this environment in Japan?
Thank you very much. Just to set the background, AXA is originally from France, an insurance and asset management company. So we are global, and also we know what gender innovation is because we are based in Europe to run about advanced practices from many companies. So but in Japan, if we look at Japan, the gender has a different connotation. Gender is a socially imposed role for women, basically. So there is some notion or social norms that women should act in this role rather than that. That has been a drag for the change in the more advancement of women in this country. So all the companies, including us, are working very hard on changing that mindset. That mindset is very, very, very old, and in one time it was a government policy. So that is everywhere. So we're trying to change it. And to change it, I think we need two things. One is, for example, we are doing target setting. How many women executives we should have. Globally, we have a top 300 people should be 50-50. And Japan was one time 50, but with one representative now at 40. So we're making some progress. And the second level is we're targeting 40. Japan is to 29, but we are making some progress. But at the same time, I think you need to change the work environment so that everyone can work more easily. So even after the COVID-19 is gone, we are still keeping 50-50 principle. So you can stay 50% at home. And we don't really micromanage people just by goals. And all the teams have a team agreement, the team, how you work within the team and how you communicate and in what kind of event you will come to office. So that is the way we manage the people. And that makes everybody more responsible for them. So that is the way that I think you need both to really promote that. So in terms of obstacles, how we change the majority is the obstacle. Because we tend to think that it's a minority issue. There's no issue in minority. issue is the majority, and in this case, it's men. How we change the men's mindset, and DEI is good for everyone, including male, is something we are really trying to do. For that purpose, we are doing annual inclusion conference, inviting all the managers and inviting external speakers, and I do dialogue with those external speakers, talk about what is good about DEI, how DEI improves. And then at the end of the conference, we ask everyone to make some commitments so that in their team, what are they going to do to improve or more include their people and generate more new ideas. So that is we have been doing it since 2015. So it is a medium to long-term efforts but changing the majority is a harder thing. And I think it is also true to handicapped. Why the city today is so difficult for handicapped people is that it is designed by healthy people. So that's the kind of concept we need to have, and gender innovation has an eye on that aspect to really differentiate and promote that idea.
Thank you very much. I think the concept is probably something like this. I'm not sure if everyone can see. So if all the design is already done, including lots of different minorities or different issues, this is what they call universal sort of design, right? But then who benefits from all of that? It's actually not just the people in wheelchair, but it's the people with luggages, it's people, with baby cars. And so I think what Yasubushi-san just mentioned, it's to bring these everybody onto the table to make sure that everybody's ideas included to make better society for everybody, not just for women, not just for disabled people, but it's actually beneficial to everybody. I think that's the whole concept here. Thank you very much. And do you think there's a hurdle in challenges? What are the challenges you're seeing at the moment in order to explore that within your company?
Yeah, there is a concept of privilege. So majority has privilege, and that everyone should understand that the majority has been enjoying such privilege without any real effort, because they belong to the majority that opens doors and gives them permissions to many things, while minority has to always knock the door, explain why I need to have an access, and that is something happening. So to persuade and let the majority know that it is not discriminate against you, and it will eventually be I think, much better world. And if you really understand that having that privilege, and privilege has some duty usually, but in this case, unconscious privilege does not give any duty. So that is a way people's mindset should change. So for example, the training for the unconscious bias really helps. So we've done it all the managers so that they can understand everybody has unconscious bias, including myself. And that changes people's behavior. I think that type of acting on majority, on privilege is something at least we're trying to do.
Great, thank you very much. I think it's also understanding that privilege is not going to be taken away just by giving opportunity to somebody else. I think that's also probably underlying concept that you were saying. Thank you. Horie-san, I know that this support and development for young female entrepreneurs in Japan, well, that's also underway. But from your experience, what do you think is being sort of contributing to the challenges, or in order to close this gap, what are the things that you think should change in order for us to foster this GI concept?
I think awareness, and we are openly talk about what's different. For example, some of the women entrepreneurs consistently said that they have to play dumb. They have to say, yoroshiku onegaishimasu, and they have to continue to play rather submissive in order to be accepted. And I don't hear that when I'm in America working with the Silicon Valley entrepreneur. And so, obviously that makes it very difficult because you have to pretend. And if you be who you are, and sometimes you get excluded, and so that's the fine line. They said that I'm powerful, I am determined, but I have to be careful how I express. So it's easy to point the finger at her. You should be who you are, but a repeated culture that perhaps from parents, sometimes a regional culture, and the people around that kept some women to be that way. The other thing is pass down the belief. You have to take that. That's how it is. Some of the sexual harassment or comments, it happens all the time. Therefore, you need to accept it and ride through it. And we need to say, just because it's being common, no is no. And so in a way that us having more equal behavior pointed out, it's okay, women to speak up. Also men to take a moment to have women speak in a more powerful position. So those are things I have heard quite a bit, that men stepping up, also encouraging women to speak, as well as women recognizing and start playing dumb.
Right.
Yes.
Now, I think, one of the prime example is like elevator pitch. 1 minute you go in aggressive and then you need to make that pitch and then you either get it or you don't. But maybe that's not essential, or that's maybe not the only way to get the investment. Maybe there's other ways. You were mentioning about when you went back second time, the investor went back for the second time, and then they actually ended up being a great
Yes, the
idea.
Silicon Valley particularly often said entrepreneur model. Entrepreneurs speak a bigger number on the projection than what it is. So investors said, we listen halfway down. But the women actually played down. So one time, one of the VC called me and said, I have this woman entrepreneur. She couldn't answer all the number question. I should not invest. But she's so good, I don't understand. And I said, well, women are being challenged to prove she is loyal and she's not allowed to make a mistake. So there's no way that they will boast the number. So possibly that could be the case. Please go back to talk to her. And when she came back, she was so ready. She was down to the detail of every number. And the investor basically came back. I'm glad I wasn't aware of the cultural pressure the women face. And when I was aware and then spoke to her, she showed up very differently, and they ended up investing her. Yes.
Well, I think that's a great example of how you listen to those ideas. And so maybe like the manner in which we accept all these ideas and make it sort of come true, that also needs a little consideration in terms of sort of GI, as in, yeah. I'm just coming back to Yuzaki-san, if that's okay. I'm wondering, in your community, I would imagine you would need to take care of all the different diversified view in order to create community or services that you provide within Hiroshima. Do you have all these gender sort of differences, different variety of people on the on board who can participate in giving all these differences about different opinions, who can make decisions? Who are on your decision-making sort of board?
Oh, you mean the prefectural government or?
In your Hiroshima government, yes, the prefecture government.
Yeah, well, one of the vice governor is a woman, and we're trying also to increase the number of or share of women in the management position, and to reflect the demography within the prefecture office. And of course, we do. We have policies and a lot of programs to promote women in workplaces and giving promotion to women and reflect the demography within their companies. But I just wanted to touch upon a little bit on the economic impact of GI.
Please.
I think the very similar idea. I think we could see like a market for lefty. The most of the products are designed for right-handed people, and the lefty has kind of had handicap. But if you look at the lefty market, it's quite a size. And women, women are not really minority, because half of the population is women. So if we have overlooked the difference between, especially physical and the other differences between men and women, then we could probably have a huge potential market to fill the gap. But we've been talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and sometimes the minorities could be really small number, and sometimes it's costly. It has more cost than the entire benefit. Well, okay, GI. We could probably expect quite the size of economic positive impact. But sometimes, when we promote the diversity and equity and inclusion, there could be cost side. The cost is much heavier, but we still have to promote that, not just from the economic perspective, but from an equity perspective. I think that we need to be a little bit careful when we discuss that, because women could be majority, right? and there could be a very small number of minority who are getting disadvantages. We have to be we have to give consideration to all those,
Right. Okay. It's true.
regardless of cost. Yeah.
Yeah. I think so. If you understand the development or the innovation or product design or something just for the minority, I think it could be very, very costly. But like if you can actually focus on, it's actually not just for that group, but it's for everybody at the end of the day. I think that's the huge step that differentiates between just focusing on the minority and make it equitable for her or for him, to it's actually equitable for everybody in the society. So thank you very much, Zaki-san, for the input. And then I think that comes also to the issue of how you measure the effect of GI at the end of the day. I think this point is still under discussion. Dr. Londa, if you have any input.
Yeah, so I want to mention that there is a cost to not doing gendered innovations. So if we think about some of these companies in Silicon Valley, like Apple, for example, that makes the iPhone, when Siri spoke originally, Siri, the assistant, she had only a female voice. And this was not accepted in society because it reinforced this gendered idea that assistants are women. And people pushed back on this. Apple had to scurry. So now Apple is very concerned to think about all kinds of things. They have what they call their intersectional axes. So they think about disability, they think about age, they think about different parts of the population. And what they had to do with their Siri voice was they immediately then released a male voice. We remember some years ago. Now they have a non-binary voice because some people would like that as well. And so we have to think of how all these gender attitudes are built into products. And companies can really get ahead of this and not make a big mistake, have to take the product back, which costs them money, and then relaunch it, with acceptable gender, norms in it. And so we have to think about that cost of making big mistakes. And I will say that the Silicon Valley companies are really using gendered innovations. They're really thinking about this and how do they make their products better for everyone at the beginning. And so if we think about the cost, I mean, I think it's very true. There are costs first about studying everyone, and then there are then the economic benefits like the one I showed for the heart disease. But I wanted to come back again to the barriers. There are other ways we can overcome these barriers. I teach university students. We need to include gender analysis in university courses, and not only in the humanities and social science, where lots of this is taught, especially in the United States, but also in engineering. So product designers know what to do in design schools, in computer science, especially, where we have a huge opportunity to de-bias the algorithms now before they reinforce the kind of gender relations we don't want, but they can create new gender relations. So there's lots of opportunity.
Thank you very much. Would you like to add to any of?
Yeah, in the gender innovation along the line, one of my friends who developed a swipe. If you don't, instead of clicking it, you move the finger and then it spells out. It was developed for his friend who had a car injury, had a spine damage. He couldn't move the rest of the body. And so they have developed this swipe technology for minority, for that person. And I have heard from him that everyday technology that you enjoy, 42% of those technology that you use were and has been developed by handicapped people. So when we say minority, we have to think again, because those very specific benefit allow us to innovate even more, and economic impact is so significant that I think we have to just really shift the way we think.
That's a great example of, I think, the giftedness that comes from that community in order to change sort of the product design services for everybody. I think that's a very new concept. I think that the way to look at this DEI concept. And lastly, Dr. Londa, I just wanted to ask, so I know that in States or abroad, there's this GI is a concept that's being developed, well. And do you think that in Japan, how do you think can maybe, women, I mean, when we talk about gender, unfortunately, it's still the woman, men, they're like that's the first category that comes to mind. But how can women leverage the concept of gendered innovation to turn new ideas into reality and start business, maybe? If you have any ideas.
Well, there's so much. I mean, I wanted to say that I think the Poppins company is a gendered innovation because Japan is very worried now about population growth, worried that you don't have enough people to support elderly people. But Japan has a lot of, not quite 50% of your population, but a lot of women who are still at home taking care of children where they could be a part of the working population. And so I think the Poppins company, which does daycare, quality daycare, now elderly care, which is also something that women tend to take care of, I think this is a great example of a gendered innovation. And we see there's just so many. It could give you so many examples.
Thank you so much, Dr. Londa. I'm very honored. Sorry, it's very surprising to me that Poppins, that my mother created this company 37 years ago, and yet with this GI, understanding this GI new concept, it's actually she understood that some years ago, and she's developed business on that. And then I think that's really going to benefit everybody else, because if the woman shines, society shines and the world changes. I think these are the slogans that she's always talked about. So it's not just for women, but it's for the world, it's for the society. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
thank you so much for your comment. Yes, Uchi-san, do you have?
Yeah, just I want to add one aspect is something called the femtech these days, because Japan's like healthcare system, health check system is originally built by men, customized for men, without taking too much attention on the female's health conditions or the specific diseases or symptoms. So now I think Japan is changing to really focus on what's the difference, what kind of care we need to make. And for example, we introduced a new program focusing on, for example, taking care of the fertility therapy and more focus on the pregnancy and child care. So that is something to not only to support women, but support the entire family, including a partner, and also including the same-sex partner. So that is a way we are moving, and that is also, I think, partially or wholly affected by the difference of men and women and part of the GI.
Just to quickly add, to jump on your topic, menopause has been quite an economic damage for industry. So in the U.S. now they're introducing a menopause leave because all the hormone changes you can control. And some of the emotional outbursts happen. And in the past, people label, oh, she's emotional. And we missed what's really happening. And with that, over 40% of women have a huge damage on their career path at that point. And as a company, 35% of their loss, because they have trained women, and those are people cliffing off and misjudging her challenge as a personal challenge. Instead, it's recognizing medical impact. So as a company, we recognize what women go through, then you can begin to see, oh, that was a medical issue, and how we can keep those talented, amazing older women in the right place that continue to benefit for your company as well.
That's a great point. Thank you so much, because I think in Japan, we've finally started talking about femtech, period, all that sort of thing. But menopause is still sort of the next step, I think, for people to start sort of beginning to understand that can actually affect women in a quite harsh way. And so slowly but surely, I think the society is really changing to be able to utilize all the labor force. I think whoever wants to work can actually work. I think that's really the society we're looking for. And so it'll be really interesting to see how GI can really help. This concept can help government, companies, business person, entrepreneurs to be able to achieve that. So thank you very much. And then I think I'm just coming to the QA session now. So we have 15 minutes. If you have any questions to the panelists, please raise your hand, or I think if there are people online, we can always take questions from online. Yes, sorry, the lady. Yeah.
Just second year, and thank you very much for very interesting discussions today. And because Japan is a very not gender equity country still, and then I think level is 127 out of 150 or something, very low level. And we learned some hints, like we should increase awareness of equal behavior at home. But if there is any hints, what to do, what to start in a company from tomorrow, if you have any recommendation, can you tell us?
Thank you very much. So I'm going to take just a few questions and then distribute. Is there anybody else? Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So are there any successful cases which indicate the correlation between GI and the company growth in production, especially for IT in the industry? Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you very much. Wonderful session. I have a question to Yasubuchi-san. And it's a problem that the room for this important topic is not full today. How can we increase the executive in the other rooms to their interest, increase their interest? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm just going to take these questions. Maybe, so the first question, I can ask Horie-san and Yasubuchi-san maybe to answer for us. And the second question to Dr. Londa. Do you remember the question, Dr. Londa? Is the successful cases of GI in especially IT industry that made impact. And the third one is for Yasubuchi-san as well. Maybe Horie-san, you'd like to start?
Yes. So your question's actual mindset shift? Yes. The language that we use is really, really important. And when I trained a women entrepreneur, we are very careful type of the word they use. And culturally, Japanese language for women also has a lot of submissive conversation. So one, just turning up on that, the way she said, is there any other way she can say? I often have a conversation with a woman entrepreneur, but any women and men. Would you say that if you were a man? Or would you say that if the other person's a woman? With a very interesting statistic, there was a customer service, had a men and women, and she took a vacation and he took her account. And he had more challenges to close the customer service question because people were microaggression toward her, even though it was him. And then they realized the customer more aggressive to women. And so they decided to test it out, putting a dog as icon. And then took the statistic. And turns out people are more giving a hard time to her than dog icon. Right? So being aware, the language you use, and you are not doing, women to women too, we sometimes get really aggressive. Right? So I'm not saying it's all men, but language and just being aware of those stats, you begin to say, hey, let's test it out, right? We don't know. It's not men's fault, it's not women's fault, but what's happening in society. So finding out system glitch, and I think you might begin to have something change in the system, like she said, policy change, and it start changing. Instead of, you women have to change or you men have to change, but look at it as a society glitch that you can shift. I think that's you see the long-term return.
Thank you very much. Great. Yasubuchi-san.
Yeah, if the question is for companies, where to start? I think you can start from two levels. One is to really understand how your employees feel that are they included in this company or not. Probably you can do anonymous survey of the inclusion, how you feel. Is the diversity is really leveraged? And so that type is one to really understand where the employees are feeling. And in some cases, you can do that to the new hires so that why they join the company is, I think people are looking at many things. It's one level. Two is within the management, they have to come up with some declaration. Do they really value all everybody, every talented person with different attributes? And if so, they have to make a clear declaration on the website somewhere. It's like a declaration of the like human rights type of thing, so that everybody knows that this company values people, irrespective of attributes, and you are given the same opportunity. So that type of two levels work is a good starting point. And having that kind of discussion among the management team is also very good, so that there will be different views and some unconscious bias will appear.
Thank you very much, Yasubuchi-san. So Dr. Londa, maybe if you could talk about the second question, the successful cases that you might have seen.
cases in IT.
Yeah.
So there is so much happening in, generative AI and AI. And the problem with the new generative AI is that if the large language models, they're focused on the historical use of language, which has so many gender biases in it, that model is just going to return to you all these social biases. So the work for companies is to figure out how to debias the algorithms before they return the bias to us. But this has also backfired. Google had this amazing example last spring with images, and now they've closed down their images until they can work this out. But they had put some kind of rule into their algorithm to return diverse images of a group. So if you have a group of people, it should include old people and young people, and in the US, Black people and white people and all kinds of people. And the problem was, the question was, who founded the US? And of course, we know that those were all white men back in the 18th century, 200 years ago. So the Google image returned a variety, a diversity of people, and that was just wrong. It also returned a Black pope. We know the Pope of the Catholic world is not a Black person because it was not to return stereotypes. So I applaud Google for trying to get ahead of this problem, but just adding a rule in didn't work so well. So I think companies have a real opportunity now to get the algorithms right as all of this generative AI is coming out. It's a new thing, and it needs to be socially responsible, and people are demanding that it's socially responsible. So it's an opportunity, but it's also a very difficult job. I could also talk about facial recognition. We have this very famous case of a Black woman who was an MIT graduate student working on her PhD. She was developing a facial recognition system, and it could not see her because she was Black and a woman until she put on a white mask. And so the solution to that is to create new inclusive databases. So there's so much to do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Londa. I think that's a very interesting point, actually, the facial recognition. I think not only the colors, but I think it was to do with the
being female.
Male,
Also.
right,
and
well.
and women,
right, yeah.
And it's very interesting that a lot of the facial recognition databases don't have lots of Asians in them because they're kind of created in the US. So there's so many things we need to be attuned to and think about.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions? Oh, okay. Yes. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes.
So a couple of things. Yeah, we hope this room would be full, but it is not. But this is just a starting point. It is a gendered innovation for the first time. So one thing we have to do is continue to do this. And if you have some conference in your company, please ask Dr. Harbinger to talk about gender innovation. And second, I think you need to talk about this session at your company and everywhere, so that there is a gender innovation that may, I think, change some of the Japanese society and companies. And thirdly, please post it on the SNS so that people will notice. I think that you can do, and probably next time, I think we'll move into a bigger room.
Thank you very much, Yasushi-san. I think it's, I've been tackling this womanomics and sort of the woman issue for a very long time. And I just wanted to change the tide to talk about it from a negative way. Why are we not there? Why is this not happening? To actually, there's so much that we can do if we use this to innovate, to bring sort of changes, and it's actually beneficial to everybody. I think that's really the point. And so if you have anything that you've seen today, products, services, or, something that you notice around, in your lifestyle, everyday life. I think that's something that if you could just remember the concept of GI with that and talk about it with people, I think that's something that is exactly what Yasubu-san said, that we'll have absolutely a room full of people for next time. Thank you. So maybe I'll just get one sort of word each from everybody who's contributed on the panel today. Can I start with Mr. Yuzaki, if that's okay?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I think talked a lot about the biases, and there's so much bias and so strong, installed in our brain and society. And there was a question about what we could start with, and I think being more aware of the bias, or pointing out the biases that when you feel it, just don't let it go, and point it out. And I think you have to work, I think, a kind of hard to change that. But in doing that, there is a lot of opportunities, and you can find a lot of opportunities.
Thank you so much. 堀江さん、お願いします。Sorry, oh, I spoke in Japanese. Please.
So, just to being aware and be curious, I was surprised. 88% of women said, yes, I get ignored at the meeting or being interrupted. So you could argue, I didn't do that. I think women are having this victim thoughts. But let's say, if that's the truth, well, I welcome you all. Go back to work and see how when women speak, how room patiently listen, or they often get interrupted. And do your own test. And I think, yes, people are not malicious, not intentional, but that's not an excuse for us to be where we are. We have so much way that we can make it better, not just for women, but our daughters. And when Japan can overcome, the rest of the world's actually waiting for Japan to fix that problem. And so there's so much more opportunity too. So don't just look at a social issue, but at the business opportunities everywhere. And have a sense of fun and enjoyment and curiosity at workplace come to biases too, because we're all in together and we can make a difference.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Sorry, we have 30 seconds for
end. So we learn new things today, and it is excited and let's look from here toward a better future. We tend to look back and criticize ourselves, others. That doesn't mean anything. So from here on, things will be better by leveraging this idea, disseminating this idea, talking about this idea, and taking some actions. So let's see the brighter future. Thank you very much.
Beautiful, thank you. And Dr. Londa, just a last very quick comment. Sorry.
Very quickly, I just want to say so many things have changed in my lifetime. Things are changing very quickly, and I hope Japan will join us. When I was a young professor, if I wanted to make a point in a faculty meeting, I got one of my wonderful male colleagues to make that point for me because my voice wouldn't be heard, but now I don't have to. So I think we can bring this change to Japan as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, everybody, for joining this panel. I hope it was useful. Thank you.
Thank you.